Hi, everybody. We are live. We are on another creator spotlight. Except this time, it's not an artist or a writer, it's another content creator. We have Miss December Lace with us today, who is also a professional wrestler and a cosplayer, somebody that I've got to know for a while. Um, and so we wanted to bring her on and kind of get to know her from her perspective. Now, I'm already going to say this, right? So, a good friend of mine, Miss Wendy Shaner, of course, sent this to me. And, I really appreciate that because you don't see many, covers like that anymore, especially wrestling, right? Wrestling and comics, right? Like, I think the last time I saw a wrestling and comic was in the '90s from WWF before they changed their name. So it's kind of cool to see when they did the whole wrestling Kickstarter for everybody. So just to go over a couple things for everybody. This is a free for all. We talk about whatever we want to talk about. We have a good time. So let me just get started with you. Where are you from? And most importantly, how did you get into comic books?
Well, before I was a wrestler, I was a writer.
Ah,
So technically, I'll start there. I was a writer way before I was a wrestler. I held a pen before I got in the ring, and my foray into comics started with my poetry. I was asked to write a poem for comics, and Wendy was really nice. She's included my poetry in her comics, as well as my cosplay. So I do have a few of those floating around. So I wear many hats in my exploits here in comics and in wrestling. Although I'm more known for my wrestling than I am for my writing. So diehard December fans do know that I write some. So I am happy to share that with everybody that maybe didn't know that about me. But yes, I do wrestle, or I did wrestle. I wrestled for 8.5 years. I was out of the Midwest. I'm from Chicago, and I wrestled for 8.5 years. And then my cosplay is was what Wendy wanted me on covers for. And for that cover specifically, I tried to make it a little bit more fun.
hmm
I wanted to make people laugh for that one, and Wendy just ended up really liking that one, so she stuck with that. But I was in my actual ring attire for my December wrestler character.
and so talking about the writing piece, like I write as well, and I do editing, and you've been an editor too.
Yes.
So it's a different animal being a writer and an editor versus being an artist, correct? So trying to understand like what people want to see is easier a lot of times for artists, but be able to write and discuss what's actually going on, especially in panels of comics or in storylines, is completely different. And I know for me, it's taken me 20 years to get to the point where I actually think I can edit things somewhat okay. And it's because of just timing and understanding how books are written, how comics are written, and then how prose work is done as well. So it's definitely been an interesting thing to see from a writing perspective how things have evolved. From you know, in comics, it was always writing was secondary to art, right? And so it's always been one of those things like how do we push the writing piece, and that's being able to tell a good story. And so I would love to hear some of your stories one day.
Um. Well, the I have many stories to tell. There's always stories from the ring. There's stories that I've written, and wrestling was one of the ones where I would use physicality to tell a story. So there's many different types of story that one can tell. Um, Hopefully those are ones that people would still be interested in. I did a little bit of editing, as you mentioned before. It is a challenge. I'm formally trained in that. I went to school for that. A lot of people don't know that either. But a lot of people, since they only know me from my wrestling background, it was such a different character than the actual training that I have on what is what's aside from wrestling. They wouldn't know that because not a lot of people have maybe asked, so I don't really go around talking about that so much. But I did go to school where I was formally trained for writing and editing. So um, when people in comics found out about that, they would approach me about that, and they would have me do some work for them. And I've been lucky to work with some of the best in the industry about that. So it's been an experience to have gotten to do that recently, and I'm very lucky to have that under my belt now.
And it's kind of fun too, like especially with how the indie world is, right? Because it's a lot different than the big two. You know, in the indie world, we have a lot of people that we work with that are, a friends, but also b professionals, right? So we're trying to help them tell their best story, push their books the best way. And we've seen, there's always a Kickstarter going for a lot of things, but I want to see the stories that's going to last, right? Like not the one and done a lot of times, but I want to see a lot of companies get pushed to where there's a story that's going to be around for 30, 40, 50 years, and we're kind of seeing that happen now with some of our indie books. And just a writing on the wall, like, Marat Michael's doing his stuff with Counterpoint, Source Point Press, doing their things. Ryan Kincaid with Persuasion, and those kind of, and I'm enjoying seeing those lift off the way they've lifted off over the last couple of years. So I'm hoping, I'm praying when I'm an old man someday that these books are still around, that we still have good stories that's coming out of everything.
I have a lot of faith in the people that you just mentioned because they have the drive, they have the talent, they have the fan base for them to keep them aloft in what they're doing. They I own a lot of the books that they're doing. I've supported the Kickstarters that they have, and they're just so talented in what they do. And they're really good people. And they also just know what they're doing, which is a great thing. They just tell good stories, so they don't have. I don't see a problem for them having their product sitting on the shelves for very long because it's just so good. It just sells itself. Like so, I think that they're them having a long term book out there, and I think that they're doing well. And it just shows that there is a place for independent comics and there is a fan base for it, and people that are worried about if there is a place for storytellers out there aside from the big two. There is, because fans want a good story and they're out there providing it.
And I love reading Pray for the Center. I mean, I remember picking up the first one Marat put out, and I'm like, okay, this is different, but different good, right? And that's what I enjoyed about like that Persuasion, Merc when they put out, Death Rage and Miss Meow and those things. And I'm a huge Coffin guy, so I'm always going to support Lady Death and them. But we've got a lot that are actually pushing things, and the stories are getting better and better, especially over time too. I mean, I've seen a lot of differences in some of the first books to the second to the third. It just keeps getting better and better, and that's just experience and timing. And so I'm hopeful and I'm prayerful because these guys are wonderful. I enjoy working with them, and especially going to a convention, right? Like that's one of my favorite things to do is to go to a convention and just spend all day in Artist Alley, right? And it's just to hang out with people, talk to them because we don't get to see them that often because everybody's not on the same schedules. But getting to understand like where their stories are coming from and where they're going to go over time. Wendy, for example, I got to see her finally after a long time out at Swarmfest, and it was just nuts because it was like um, so Sarah, Marseille, Kara, Nicole, we're all out there. I'm like, all right. I need your cosplay books, Wendy, that you got. Can you bring me a couple of those? Because I wanted to have all the girls sign it, while I was there because that's what I always do. To me, it was funny when I saw Haley and she's like, "You want me to sign your book?" I said, "Yes, I want you to sign your book because you're my friend. This is I enjoy this stuff." It's like yours. If I see you, I'm going to have you sign yours. It's the same way. It's just for me as a fan and as a friend for everybody. It's just I enjoy it. This is fun to me, and that's what people need to understand. Is like you can get out of your comfort zone that you were in before, and not. I'm not going to say an introvert, extrovert, whatnot, right? Like there's different types of personalities, but you can talk to people and have a good time. Um, and so I enjoy it. I have fun with everyone. And I'm that guy who really doesn't get nothing done in a convention because I'm talking to everybody all day long.
I don't think that cons. I mean, they are there to get certain things done, but I think the main thing is to have fun. I mean, I would be so upset if I found out that people weren't having fun at a con. I mean, there obviously people have their livelihoods to get.
Mm.
Um, they have to they have to have um, they have to set up shop, and a lot of them depend on their income a lot of the time for that. But having fun is just such a an important part of the con. And if nobody is having fun, then nobody's gonna go. Like
And
fans can tell a mile away if like you're just trying to sell them stuff, and if you're just trying to suckle money out of them, nobody wants to be there for that.
no, and you can tell it too, especially when you go to the bigger conventions, right? Like San Diego and New York Comic Con, right? It's like it's different there versus a smaller convention, and that's what I've kind of enjoyed more now is the smaller conventions because you actually get to have fun and talk to people, and it's not sitting in a line for 8 hours, right? Just trying to get one person's autograph, and that's never fun, and that you don't want to waste your whole day at a convention. So that's why I'm so glad everybody is the way they are is on the independent side because you walk up, you talk to them, they'll talk to you for 20, 30 minutes, It's like, and like Ryan's a perfect example, right? Ryan can talk and draw at the same time. He'll look up at you, uh huh. And then, but he's giving you the time to talk. And then he'll put it down and he'll just start talking your head off. And it's like, I have a blast with that. Got to meet Shannon this last round. And so it's good to meet her too. So it's good to see like the families that are growing up in comics too now because everyone's having fun. Clyde McDonald, everybody, Comic Connection, all these, retailers that are trying to help out everybody. That's what community is about, and that's what we do, just to help out one another. I mean,
Ryan and Shannon are great too because they help out the community. Like not only are they terrific to their fans and terrific to the fellow artists, but they just to the community on the whole, they are terrific people. So they're just absolute superstars within like just for what he does specifically for his art. He's an incredible talent, but just as a person, he's an absolute rock star. So anybody that is unfamiliar with them, like just add him to your who to watch out for list if you haven't already, because he is absolutely amazing. And he's awesome to talk to, also, like you were saying. So just make sure that you go to his booth whenever you can.
it he's a big toy guy. So if you don't like comics but you like toys, you can still go talk toys with Riot because he still buys the same toys like right here. He's always talking to me about toys. I'm like, yeah, dude, because we have common goals. But he's always easy to talk to. I mean, I think that's the thing with Ryan and Shannon. Like, you can walk up to them like you've known them for years and just talk to them, and they just have a good time. Mariah's the same way. I've sat
Oh
with
yeah,
Mariah.
he's a total sweetheart.
I mean, it's just a fun
I love
time.
that guy.
Um, we kind of get lucky here in Dallas and Arlington because we have Fan Expo here, so we get to get a lot of the people out here, like Don and Ebass and JP Roth and all those guys, and it's like it's nice to see like all the independents come out here, but then it's also fun to go to the other ones too that you don't get to see all the time too. So it's like there's a lot out there, and there's a lot to see and read too if you're a comic book person. You just got to kind of open your eyes and see what's out there too.
So there's another comic with a ton of longevity too that I was thinking about when people that might be worried about indie people not surviving out there. Tarot Witch of the Black Rose just celebrated 23 years and they're going strong. So Jim Balance comic, him and Holly G, they are killing it, and that's my favorite comic to read right now, and it has been for years. They do that all independently, and it is killer. His drawings are fantastic. A lot of people that might have heard his name know him from the Catwoman run in the 90s.
Hmm.
They do that all themselves, and it's still just completely independent. And yeah, so if anybody needs an example, it's 23 years strong. Um, and they like there is obviously a huge fan base for that. So indies in comics, they're doing just fine, and there is a place for you too.
And there is. I mean, there's a storyline. There's a niche for any person. If you want um, bad girl books, if you want, robotic wars, if you want, there is something. I guarantee you'll find something within indie to read. I mean, look at Vampirella, like how long she's been going on, right? Like even from Dynamite side, they've been doing it for a long time. But then when you start looking at like Jim Balent, right? He's been doing tarot for so long, but then I was reading in his stuff when he was doing Purgatory back in Chaos days in the '90s. So it's like
Those are
I don't know.
killer too.
I love that
So good,
stuff.
yeah.
I mean, it's like I see his artwork. I'm like, that's Jim Bailey. I gotta buy it. I mean, it
Yep.
just because you don't see it at a comic shop hardly ever. Because it's just yeah, it's risque. Tarot is risque for a lot of LCSs. So because there's a lot of them that are pretty conservative. But ask your LCS, they can probably get it for you. You
Well,
know.
that too, and a lot of people order it straight from their website because they have awesome bundle deals. Like you can get their A and B cover, and like they'll put in a bonus for you every month for like $7,
Yeah.
and they do awesome. Like they are amazing to their fans, and I try to tell as many people about him as I can because they like not only are they just really good people, like he is super humble. You would never guess like how good he is on the comic scene, like how many things that he's done. Both of them, him and Holly G, super wonderful. But they're just like that good to their fans all the time. Every Kickstarter, everything that they send out, like it's quality, good work, and like it is really the best thing that I'm reading out there, like consistently, and it's so good. So if you can't find it at your LCS, they'll order it for you, but really just add it from your from their list,
Mm-mm.
from their website because you're getting the best deal that you can over there.
And
That's
I
just
love
me
it.
though.
Oh, I'm 100% on board because I love their Kickstarters. I mean, you get some of the best
Yes.
deals ever on artwork, right? Like when
Oh
the
yeah.
commissions he does and then the remarks they do. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to get those kind of prices anywhere outside of that. But here's the thing too: is like there is there is some fans, right? Like they don't want to go talk to the artist directly, right? Because there's that kind of like um, hesitation. I'll say, like, hey, I don't want to talk to the artist directly. Maybe I'll go through the Kickstarter to do it, and that's okay. But artists are people just like everybody else. You can message them, add them as a friend, or follow them and send them a message if you want to do a commission. Most importantly, kind of be educated on what they're doing though first, right? Like if they've got a website, go look at their website, and a lot of times they'll tell you, hey, if their commission list is open or what they're doing. But artists are just like anybody else. Just give them a talk, and then they'll talk right. I've talked to Jim
Most of the
so
time.
most of the time.
Most of the time they're like everybody else. Every now
Yeah.
and then you get somebody that thinks that they're a rock star and it is
Oh,
very odd. And I'm like, no, you're mm-mm.
mm-mm. Yeah.
But
We
most of the time they are very cool people and they do want you to talk to them and they're super cool and they are like everybody else and they like the same stuff that you like if you're into comics. They like toys, they like superheroes, they want to talk to you.
and the funny part too is like talking to Dominic T. When I go up there, I'm like, the first time I met her was back in like 2014 when she just started, right? And I'm like, she was doing work for Lady Mechanica, way back then,
Which is
and I'm
also awesome.
Joe Benitez, yes.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, I saw her and I'm like, all right, so she's a new upcoming artist, back then. Fast forward 10 years later, right? And like she's one of the bigger ones in our industry now. And it's like, but she doesn't care. She doesn't care like what she's, as far as where she's came. She'll still talk to you like it was anything, and it's because we do have good people. I know a lot of the ones you're talking about. There's a lot of, I'm going to say shitbags out there that don't think they're holier than thou. And guess what? It's you do the same thing I do. We both put our clothes on the same exact way, right? And it's like you need to have respect for the fans that are supporting you. Um, Tyler Kirkham, another good dude. I've talked to him several times. Ali Garza. And it's like there's a lot of good people out there, a lot of good artists, and there's a style too, right? There's a style for anything that people like today. Um, and because some people like more cartoony, right? Some people like more risque. Some people like more. Um, I'm going to say, how do I say this? Like futuristic, like some people like different things. So people shouldn't be afraid to try an indie book because, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good artists in Marvel and DC too. But to me, the story's not there. It really isn't. The story's in indie today. All right. Now I'm going to bring an old book out. This is my first book I got of you.
Well, now I'm gonna feel old. I didn't think anything I did was old.
No, I'm just joking. I give you a hard time.
I
This is
I
my
didn't
first
think
book.
that was too old.
Nah, no. But compared to how many covers I have of yours now from Wendy, that was the first one I got. And I remember getting it from Joe. Joe messaged me, said, "I got
Joe's
one."
awesome. I love him.
He bends over backwards, and a lot of people don't see that all the time. Like he does so much good work. And Joe messaged me, and he said, "I got one left because it was pretty much selling out at that time." I'm like, "Let me grab that one." Because I enjoy cosplay covers just as much as I do regular covers because I get to see like how you guys put the action into the work, right? Like as far as like you doing it, Kara Nicole, Sarah, Marseille, um, Morgan as well. So I will say this: thank you for doing what you do as a cosplayer too, because it shows people how the different things can be done within our community, right? Like, look at it from a different perspective. How somebody works, and they put a lot of work into these shoots and these covers, and it's like, bravo, bravo. That's
Oh,
all I
thank
can
you
say.
guys.
Thank
I
you.
I love Wendy and I love Joe and I love the fans of Joe's Buku comic store. Like I love what he I was shopping late at night one time and he hooked me up with something that I was trying to find really hard. It was very hard for me to find something and that meant a lot to me. And he like that meant a lot. So I just wanted to help them out in any way that I could, him and Wendy. And I'm surprised that anybody wanted one to be honest.
I do
So
because
that meant a lot to me that you guys even wanted one. So that means a lot. Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. And keep doing what you're doing. You're doing awesome. I don't, because
I
there's so
mean, if
many.
people want to see me in my undies, that's cool too. But like, yeah, cosplay is kicking ass.
I love it, and that's one of my favorite parts at conventions and walking around, like seeing the time and effort you guys take to make the costumes and to come out and do it. It's like I enjoy it. That makes it fun because people, it's you come out of your skin a little bit, right? When you're doing a cosplay because you're doing something different that other people don't do all the time. So I have a lot of respect for what you guys do.
I love seeing what my peers come up with. To be honest, like I'm always thinking, like, is what I do okay enough? Did I do enough here? I wish I could have done this better. And then I see what some of my colleagues do, and I'm just blown away. They inspire me so much. Like there is some killer cosplay that I've seen this year, and it's just truly blown me away. And I'm like, that is such a great idea, and like, yeah, it just really floors me what some of my friends have come up with, and I'm like, I'm so proud of them, like what they're able to achieve, and it's just so great. I'm glad that they're getting respect too. Like I don't want anybody getting handsy with them or calling them names or anything like
Yeah.
that. I'm just glad that there's a little bit more respect for cosplay and there are people that appreciate them.
It to me it is a respect thing too, right? Because there is I'm going to say assholes out there, but
There's
the
assholes everywhere.
but it's like people need to be respectful. I mean, of of who you are as not just as a person, but what you're representing, right? Like you took the time, you wanted to represent this. They don't need to be doing nothing stupid. Period. And if I see anything, I'm going to say something because I have a big mouth. And so it's just not right. You don't do that to cosplayers. I've seen I've seen bad things happen in San Diego. And it's like, no, it's not a free for all. Be respectful. Do like your mama taught you. Be respectful of a lady.
I mean, I think that you just be respectful of everybody. It's not so like when I put on a cosplay suit, I just want to make sure that I get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, it's like if I put a lot of time into something, I'm very like I'm a stickler for details, and a lot of people don't realize how uncomfortable something might be. But it's like I need to make sure that it's right, or at least if something is my idea, I want to make sure like I'm there to accomplish correctness, not really anything else. Um, I'm not there to advertise like a body part. I'm there
Mm-hmm.
to get my cosplay right. Like it's there for um it's there for me to play and also to represent a character.
So,
That's really what it comes down to, but like that's just what it is to me. I don't know like how and a lot of other cosplayers feel the same way too. Um but it sometimes can get like an outfit can get uncomfortable. So like I can pretty much guarantee you the last thing that I'm thinking about is to have somebody come up to me and like grab me or hit on me or anything like that. If someone wants a picture taken of me because I got the costume right, awesome.
mm,
But other than that, like I just wanted to get a costume right. Like that's really all there is to it. And I don't know how I can't speak for anybody else. I really can't. But coming from me, this is a kid that watched X-Men when she was growing up and I just wanted to be Storm. That's all I ever wanted to be and I wanted to do that costume correctly. So that like whenever anybody sees me from like here on out, it's just that little tiny December trying to get a superhero costume right and trying to have that imagination still. Like that's literally it. So I'm sorry if I killed that image that I maybe put in somebody's head, but I still am that little kid with that imagination. So have as many pictures as you want, but that's really like all I wanted to achieve.
well, when you think about it, right? We're all from the same eras, right? The 80s and 90s. We grew up with these things, right? With comic books, with
Damn
toys.
right.
You know, mine was Transformers when I was a kid, right? Well, henceforth, why I have a bunch of Transformers, right? I grew up with that. I grew up with Green Lantern and Wolverine from the 80s and 90s, and X Men, from Jim Lee. Um, but then things changed, and 1994 happened, and Lady Death happened, and then that was kind of a wash since then. But the thing is if you enjoyed it, grow up with it, then don't be ashamed of it. Have fun with it. Have fun with it as much as you want. I mean, I remember being a kid watching X Men and Spider Man on a Saturday on our one TV that we had in the house, right? And you had to share it, and you're like, I gotta watch it. I got it. Only comes on Saturdays. My dad's like, Nah, you're gonna go watch it. I'm like, No, and you're taping it on a VHS, right? So you can watch it later. Um, but yeah, I love seeing that, especially all the work that y'all do, and I give you guys mad props and respect because it's a lot of work, and I know you guys are uncomfortable a lot of times doing it. So people understand that if there are things and they need time or whatnot, just let them have time. And don't crowd the cosplayer. Don't crowd them all day long because they're human beings too. Let them go out and eat and drink and do what they want to do. Because I see that occasionally too. Just like, okay, now y'all need a break too, just as much as everybody else.
Well, I've been pretty lucky. Like, I don't get swarmed most of the time. It's pretty nice. I've had people are a lot of time are really respectful of me, and I totally appreciate it. I haven't been in a situation where people ever crowd me or like they don't let me eat or anything like that. It's been very nice. If I'm trying to shop or something like that, it's been very cool. People are usually respectful, and I try to do costumes too where I'm comfortable, where it's like an outfit I can move around in or something like that. So it's usually worked out pretty well. But I make the choice to do things where I'm comfortable with, and I know that I won't put myself where I won't be in an uncomfortable situation. Um, so I also know that I'm gonna have to walk around the whole day in a con, and I try to spend a lot of time with artists too. So, in order to see the people that I care about, because cons to me aren't just about shopping or attending panels. They're about seeing people that I don't get to see a lot of times out of the year. Like I need to catch up with people that I care about, and that's a lot of parts of having fun for me is to see the people I normally wouldn't get to the rest of the year.
That
So I
happens to
need
me
to
a
be able
lot.
to move around a lot.
I'm the same way. I mean, like literally, I'll spend the money to go to Dallas Fan Expo, and I'll sit in Artist Alley all day.
Yeah.
And then before I know it, it's 4 o'clock and it's time to go. I'm like, crap, you know. So Chrissy Knott and I'll sit there and talk for an hour or so. I'll just be sitting at his booth, him drawing and us talking. And that's one of my favorite parts is just hanging out with the guys and talking to them because getting to see like, hey, especially when we see some of the stuff behind the scenes because we know who they are as friends, but making sure that they're okay too and helping them out as we can. Um, I have a blast, and I hope everybody else can have a blast there. The biggest thing is like I'm not sitting in line for 12 hours anymore. Maybe that's kind of how the conventions was, right? Like when I first went 20 something years ago. Oh, I got to get this one exclusive thing, and then that kind of faded to the sunlight because I'm like, nah, I'm wasting too much time on that. So I don't even really spend a whole lot at conventions anymore. I spend more time just hanging out, and to me, that's well worth the $40, $50, whatever the convention is now.
I I'm kind of the same way. Like I said a few years ago, like I kind of made the decision, like if I can stay in line or see somebody, I'm gonna see somebody because I'm not going to get to most of the time. Like there are conventions where I met somebody that turned into be a great friend as opposed to waiting for a cover, and I'm like, I can do without the comic because like I can live without this, but the person, it's like I'm not going to get a memory like this ever,
Mhm.
and that's just how I feel now.
And people waste a lot of time just standing in line, and I'm not belittling anybody, but what I'm saying is that you're gonna waste 8 hours out of a 12-hour day standing in line for one signature where you could have went and enjoyed a lot more throughout the day. So I will say be cognizant and think about what you really want to do before you even go to the convention. Just for that reason, because 8 hours is a long time to stand for one signature. I done it, and I can tell you from experience, I won't do it again either.
Well, I mean, there are certain people. I mean, it's not. I'm not going to judge them for doing it. I mean, teach their own. Like, I can't sit there and say that there aren't certain people that I would consider doing that. But at the same time, it's like there are. It's like one day out of the entire time that there are a ton of people that are congregating that might not be there the rest of the time, and there are people from all over that are going to fly in. So there are probably like 20, 30 people that I know that are going to be there at C2E2 this year. And if I
Mm-hmm.
spend 8 hours waiting for one signature, of a person that like I don't know. I'm like I there's no way that I can be okay with that. That's
Mhm.
just me though.
And I'm the same way. I mean, like if you think about like we had Jim Lee here last year, right? The common waiting time was 5 hours for each person just to get one signature from him. There's a lot of things people don't understand is that there are signature services outside of a convention. Like you can actually subscribe to those and send stuff in to them to get mailed in. It's going to take a little bit longer, but you're not waiting the time. And then you can get more things done. I've done that with Neil Adams. And I've done that with Walt Simonson, some of the old guys, and it's worked out great instead of standing in the line. And also, I'm getting older, so standing in line in the same spot for 5 6 hours kind of gets a little harder as you get older. Um, so definitely look at your timing. Is what you
Jim
got.
Lee would be pretty cool though.
Well, well, think of it in this context. So I
I'm just
have
I'm just saying.
he is cool, but I saw Jim Lee 25 years ago, and I remember I had him sign my X-Men one, and Chris Claremont was right next to him. They both signed it for free. This one, it was free back then, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm not going to do that line again, but I can understand where somebody coming into it now might do that, right? And I would just hope that it's not as expensive as some of the people are. Art Germ, he was expensive, but his table actually went really fast here last year. So, and so you got to be kind of smart with your money too, is what you're going to get.
I don't remember. I did get an Art Germ signature. I don't remember if it was if he charged though. Like I can't say. I know that this was before he like exploded because this was I want to say that this was like oh man, this was a few years ago. This was had to be I can't even remember the date, but this was uh at least like 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm,
Maybe even farther back. But he was drawing the whole time. He didn't really look up, but he signed everybody's stuff. I don't I can't remember if they charged, but I got um I got 2 prints signed.
mm,
Um and he was selling them at the I think that if you bought a print, you got a free signature.
okay.
I'm not sure, but he was there. But and he was like he was drawing on something, so he wasn't like taking questions or anything. I don't remember, but that yeah, that was before that he was like extremely like huge on the scene. But his Instagram is awesome, like, and he'll
Hmm.
talk to you when he's drawn and stuff. But yeah, very very popular now, and standing in line now, I can't even imagine. I was very very thankful to have those when I got them.
Same here. I got him to sign the Lady Death one he did years ago.
Oh, that was a great one.
Before he got big,
Yeah,
and then last year I think he only charged like $10, 10 or 15 bucks. It wasn't a whole lot.
yeah,
You shouldn't lie, but they also had lyrics, and Kendrick Lamb was there because he
yeah,
brought the whole crew from
yeah,
overseas. So like, so everybody kind of jumped on that one, right? Because you're not going to get to see them too often. So it's like Kendrick Lamb was real easy to talk to, right up in and out. Art Germ, about like I said, it wasn't that long. I meant for his line because he just signed, he was working too at the same time, but he was just signing and go. You have the one guy take the payment, while he signs it. But I mean, I would have loved to at least have 10 minutes to talk to him just to get some understanding. But I'm like, okay, I get it though. It's a convention. He's busy. Uh, but lyrics was nice. Kendrick was good. So, I mean, that's the thing is I enjoy getting to see that side of the house too because these guys are independent now. They are in the big leagues, right? They make a lot of covers now. Same way with Peach Momoko. I remember when Peach just started out and just with some watercolors, and now it's exploded. Everybody wants her. do a cover. Same way with Scotty Young. And I was like, I love Scotty Young. I love them little chibis that he draws, but it's like, I'm never going to get to see him. I haven't seen him since I started following him. So, like, maybe one day he'll show up here. All right. So, what's on the agenda for you this year? What conventions you heading to?
I have C2E2 in not this weekend, but the weekend after. So there's going to be a ton of people there. I'm gonna try to do live interviews for them, um, and then I'll upload them to my YouTube account. I'm
That's
thinking that doing live interviews will be helpful. So that's at Vemus December 32. If anybody would like to subscribe.
and I
Um,
and I will put her down in the description below for everybody to go subscribe. That's a mandatory thing.
oh,
My
thank you.
10, go subscribe. Because that's how we grow. We grow over time and how we do things. So you got to have more subscribers to grow it out. But what I will say this: if you are going to subscribe, watch what people put out too, because if you look at your algorithm, sometimes you'll see it right. Subscribed versus not subscribed, and then like half of mine are always not subscribed. It's like just hit the button, right?
I tell people, I'm like, don't be a Richard. Just hit the subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds.
Exactly. Subscribe, hit the notification, then you get to know when the new stuff comes on. Um, so you do a lot of the same things I do. You're doing interviews with people. So has there been any challenges that you've had, like trying to do interviews with people
Hell
versus like,
yes. Hell yes. It's like it's very challenging, and I a lot of time I'm like I don't even if I should be doing this in the first place. Like I set out to interview somebody, and then like the software won't work. Like I'm using Streamlabs, and the software, like, it won't hook up with whoever I'm trying to interview with, and there's been problems abound. And then it like when I try to do a backup plan, that won't work so well, and I'll have to reschedule, and it's yeah, it is very challenging. Um, so people will ask if I'm nervous. It's like, no, I'm 100% not nervous. I've been interviewed. I've interviewed a ton of times. So absolutely not. But when it comes to technology, I am not the greatest at that. So I've got like I can do a ton of that. It's just that when I'm using like in a technological world, and I have to use that to bring people an artist interview, and I'm relying on that, and it doesn't work. Yeah, it sucks. It's not great.
and it's always fun too, right? Because it's like by the time you get it all the way running, oh, I gotta go. It's like, ah, oh, come on. I've been in the same boat. I mean, I use StreamYard a lot. I was using another one. I was using OBS for a while. Um, but
OBS is
then
very much like Streamlabs, from what I understand.
it is, and OBS used to work great with YouTube, but then they stopped.
Huh.
And that's why a lot of us had to convert over to StreamYard and Streamlabs because OBS you could do multiple videos, but you also do like multiple screens, which was nice. This one you can do. I think well, it depends if you have the paid account or the regular account, right? Um, but it's the same thing. I mean, it's you get frustrated. You get seriously frustrated when things don't work right. And especially when you're already there like 15, 20 minutes early, you're like, ah, crap, this ain't working. Let me message the person.
I like otherwise it's fine, but like you said, that's pretty much the only thing. And I have like StreamYard is very user friendly, and it works great for people like me that really would like to put on a show and make it work for fans that would like to see something like this. And I thought that I was doing really good research for Streamlabs, and because it synced to YouTube, I thought that that was going to be great. And the outreach for people like would have a broader audience on YouTube, but nope, it wasn't. It hasn't been working so well, and I get frustrated, and I'm sure that The people that didn't really want to see my show work that well are having a great time. But yeah, so no, it's not. It's not that. There are many challenges, but
and
I've been through worse.
and I have too. The hard thing is like when when you've got everything set up and then something dies, right? Like I remember I was about halfway through an interview and then there's a connection drop for a second, right? That's cancels everything. It stops. StreamYard doesn't like pick up, and that's what kind of frustrates me a little bit. It's like, all right, nope, stop, and then it publishes it to YouTube, and I'm like, okay, now I got to go build a new one, start over again, part two, and then you're trying to do video editing on the back end side. Um, so I would just say people understand that interviewers, we all have struggles just like everybody else. We're normal people too, you know. Um, And so don't hate on us. Don't yell at us when things happen. It is what it is, what it is. Content creating is not easy. I don't care whoever says it is, they're lying to you. I'll tell you that.
I mean, I didn't set out to do an easy thing. I set out to do a fun thing, but I was like, if people have a problem with me doing this, I'm like, they can. I didn't see anybody really else stepping up to do what it was that I was doing, so
I think out of the
they can do it
handful,
if they want. I'm cheering them on.
I mean, that's the thing. I'll watch yours and I'll watch Nita, and that's
I
about
love
it.
Nita. She does such a great job. Her and Heather, like
Mm,
she does such a great job. She does everything that I would love to be doing, and she's got guts. She does such important work. I send everybody I can to her. Like when they're like, "What do I need to be doing?" I'm like, "Watch this.
yeah.
This is
Watch the
what you
Indie
need."
Comic Network.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to get your name out there everywhere in the Sunday, that's where you go.
Yep.
Between them and Niall Scala. Niall puts out his show with Pop XP, and he's been bringing on like Billy Tucci, Brian Polito, and those guys. Um, you can get your name out there. The hardest part is just getting the right person, really, to get your name out there, and that's the hard part. Um, and Nita, it's so professional, and that's what I will say with her is like every day. I mean, she's grinding every day on that channel, so you can guarantee there'll be something there for every
Yeah.
day that you watch. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about your wrestling career. Now we've done your cosplay content. So for wrestling, now you were in pro championship wrestling, so you'll have to explain that to people who don't understand what that is in comparison to WWF or WCW. I know what it is because I know what NWA is because I'm that old. So if you could just go over your career a little bit when you were wrestling.
Sure. PCW is it's like minor league baseball as opposed to professional league baseball. It's also it was also a wrestling school, so people that wanted to learn how to professionally wrestle would go there. A lot of the places that were independent, which is where I wrestled, there's independent locations and like the big one location at the time was WWE, although they did have TNA at the time. Um, that formed, I want to say a little bit before I started. So in terms of comics, there's the big two. In wrestling, there's WWE is the big one, and then you would have all these independent comic promotions. In wrestling, there'd be a bunch of independent wrestling promotions. I would wrestle for the independent wrestling promotions. So what made mine different was that ours was an independent wrestling promotion as well as a school. So I would train there and then work at the shows. There were other independent promotions in the area that would gather people for shows, but they didn't have a school. So those were known as Frankenstein promotions, where they would just gather talent and they would put shows together based off of workers that would come in from different territories, states, federations in the area. Um, and then me being a female, I was kind of a commodity, so I got a lot of work in the area because there wasn't really anyone out there that was close or available that was a female. So they saw a lot of me because I was trained well and I was available. So over time, I was able to gather a reputation because I came from a good school and I was able to work well without hurting others. Uh,
That's a big thing, right? Not hurting people while you're wrestling, because that's we. So the old days of like ECW, right? You know, those old days where people got hurt all the time, right? And it's like there's a your career can only go so long if you get hurt so many times.
yeah, I was trained by I was grateful because I had good trainers. A lot of them trained under people that had worked for the then WWF. They were like a supplemental talent for them. So they would bring them in if they wanted to make their guys look good. So they weren't ever like people that were going to be like main event talent, but they would make their main event talent look good. So they would run with like if WWF was in the area, let's say they would bring them on during the show to make the Undertaker look good, something like that. So that's what my trainers would they had experience in that kind of in that area. Um, that was some of them. Not all of them were like that, but some of them were. One of my trainers was in the last uh, group that was trained in WCCW, World Class Championship Wrestling. So I'm proud of that. Um, and he was also one of the people that treated me like a wrestler, not like a lady wrestler, not like a female, but he treated me as a wrestler. So I was also happy about that. A lot of schools, don't, they might treat you differently if you're a female or um, if you're a chick, but my school was they were very professional with me. They were like, we will like you know what you signed up for, so and that's exactly what I wanted. And as a result, I became known as a wrestler, and I was treated as a wrestler, and like um nobody like kind of messed with me. They they knew that like that's December. She's on the same level and she takes the same bumps, she does the same moves, she is a respected wrestler in this area, and like yeah, so I was very grateful for that.
You said world class championship wrestling. That brought back memories for me,
Yeah,
because world class was before WCW, before NWA, and them all got combined into WCW. So you're talking like all Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson time
yeah,
frames. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I remember those. I'm old enough to remember when Ric Flair was still in NWA.
yeah. He said that he was like the last group of people that came from WCCW. So that was one of my trainers. That was my first one. I had probably like 5 or 6. I went on different days, but that was the one that I studied the most, like for probably the first 2 years. His name was Aries,
Okay.
but I can tell you his more about him after the
Yeah.
call if you'd like.
Oh yeah. I love that
He's
old
from
stuff.
Dallas.
Okay. So Pro Championship Wrestling, that was in Texas, right?
There is another one in Texas that was founded after this one folded.
After that one. Okay.
That's professional championship wrestling. This one was pro championship wrestling, and then this one was in Chicago.
Chicago. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was looking at it earlier, and I'm like, and I was getting confused. I'm looking at both of these, and I'm like, okay, I said one says pro, one says professional. That's why I wanted
yeah.
to ask,
This one was pro
clarify that.
championship wrestling, and it disbanded in 2014.
Okay. Did everybody move on to other districts and other regions after it disbanded?
I don't know. I stopped 6 months before it disbanded,
Mm.
and that's when I stopped wrestling. So I left like I don't want to say retired, but I left 6 months before it folded. So some of them still wrestle, others I'm not sure about, but the majority of the management just stopped having things to do with wrestling.
There, and that happens to a lot. I saw that happen in the '90s a lot. Like Georgia wrestling, right? GCW was a good example of that. Mid state wrestling in Ohio. There was a lot of those little ones that would kind of like they weren't trainers like you guys, but they would have these little regions, and then they would all get folded in. It was funny though when I saw down from Tennessee that Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and it was still alive, and I'm like, y'all are still running after all these years, and then I'm like, that's just crazy. It's just crazy. And then seeing NWA come back after they had folded into WCW, and then there's a new title, and then it went to was it TNA, and then and I was like, it's crazy how all that works. I learned a little bit of that working in Tennessee and Kentucky at some of the events, but it was like it's a lot. There's a lot to learn in the wrestling world. I mean, it isn't just watching it on Monday Night Raw. There's a lot that goes into it.
It's very fascinating. The ways that it grew and how the territories were taken over and how they were set up and what happened with the management and who could go where and why, and it's like a rabbit hole. Once you go in there, there are so many different like loopholes and different, and a lot of it is a pissing contest.
Hmm.
And so much of it, it's just like it's its own microcosm, like the world of wrestling, and you can learn so much of it, and it's very very fascinating, like the entire history of it. It's actually how I learned geography, like when they would have
Hmm. A
people,
different area.
yeah, when they would announce where a wrestler was from and where they were billed from, and then you would find out, like, and this was before the internet, but then you would find out, like, if you watch one show they would say they were from here, and then you'd watch another show they'd say they were from here, and then I would look it up independently, and instead of school, that's how I learned where like a location was from, and then I'd find out where the headquarters of the wrestling was located at. So WCW was Georgia and
Hmm.
WWE was Stanford. And then like I would learn where the territories were. So like Jim Crockett was here, and
Yep.
then there's just all this different stuff. To Smoky Mountain was here. There was just all this stuff to learn, and yeah, I learned geography that way instead of where school was, like what they would teach you in school, and I learned it pretty well based off of that. So it was very fascinating. And uh, when people say that like school and learning isn't fun, I'm like, no, it's just like if you teach it a certain way, then yeah, it is a lot of fun, and a lot of that stuck with me.
I mean, when you teach it that perspective, right, it's going to resonate a lot more
Oh yeah,
because you're going to understand it. Like for me, like I remember, I'm my favorite wrestler was Cactus Jack Big Foley. When back way
he's a
back
nice
way,
guy too.
that's why I was kind of sad when I saw that Terry Funk died last year
Yeah,
because I've met Terry and Dory and Mick before, and it's like it's just crazy because I remember watching them in the '90s or even in the '80s when he was Cactus Jack back in WCW and then goes to the WWF. But then I see he's in New Japan Wrestling doing King of the Death matches, and I got to see one of those matches, and I'm like, this is just crazy. Like some of the stuff they did in Japan compared to what the states did, and then ECW um, came got so big here because of that kind of like death match race wrestling, right? And then you see all the little things popped up in the early 2000s. Everybody wants to do a death match. Everybody wants to do out yard outside, and it's like I stopped watching. That's when actually the last time I watched wrestling was in the 2000s because when WCW folded, because of the NWO into the WWE, and then the Undertaker finally retired, and I was like, you know what, there's a generation thing sometimes, right? And that happens with wrestling. Like all the people that I watched are all retired, and so it's like I don't know half of the new people that's in there. I'll see a couple names I know, like in AEW. I'll see Chris Jericho. Like I know who you are. I know who Sting is. I'm like, and then Sting just finally retired from AEW, and I'm like, okay, I can understand that piece, but I'm like, I couldn't tell you who all these other people are today.
And I
Um,
wish you the happiest retirement, Sting. You earned it.
He did. Steve Borden is dead for so long. I mean, he was my favorite wrestler from NWA and WCW was Sting
He
because
was my favorite wrestler, period. I became
I
a wrestler because of him.
I mean I remember watching him, coming in with the surfer look, doing Bash at the Beaches, way back when the fights between him and Ric Flair, and I was like, I loved watching wrestling then. The Steiner brothers and stuff. It was fun to watch. I mean, and in the '80s, it was fun to watch. The whole Hogan and Road Warriors and I was like, it was a fun time, '80s and '90s and part of 2000s. But then, like, you saw a lot of the older guys, like, you know what, they've been doing it for 20 years. Like we're retiring, and I understand that. But Sting kept going and going and going, and he had Darby with him. I'm like, okay, I can watch that one and know who that is. And I had a blast with it. So when I saw that he was retiring, I'm like, that's probably the nail in my coffin for wrestling because now that Sting's retired, he was the last one. Um, but it's fun to watch. I mean, and people need to take it. I mean, don't take it serious either. It's entertainment. That's what wrestling's always been. It's been entertainment for everybody. So but it's always funny. You'll see the ones get so bent out of shape at the place. I'm like, it's okay. You're going to be okay. I promise. It's going to be okay. He did not get actually buried in the coffin. Undertaker did not bury him in the ground.
What?
What? Yeah, I enjoy those old ones. I still have a bunch of the old tapes from the '80s and '90s of that stuff. I show it to my kids. I'm like, this is what Dad watched when wrestling was on.
I watched WCW today. I watched World War III from 1997.
Oh yeah, those are the good ones. That's when Hogan just showed up.
He needed to not show up because that was BS. That whole ending was just that ending was it was horseshit, to be honest.
It
Now
was like
1998 was a good one. I like
yeah,
that one.
the whole NWO thing. I actually enjoyed that line. That was a good story arc, but then it got so convoluted. Or towards the end, it's like when Sting, the Crow Sting happened. I love that because I'm a huge Crow fan.
Yes.
But I was like, after he became the Wolf Pack, and they stopped. And like, all right, we took over everything. We've got everything. It's done. And then you just saw the writing on the wall. There was like that unknown tally, right? Who's winning the Monday Night Wars? Is it WCW? It was Nitro, or is it Raw? They would go up and down, up and down, up and down. So it's like, okay, you knew it was going to happen. Somebody was going to buy out, and I was like, oh. But then everything changed after that. After they bought him out, it all changed at that point. A lot of the wrestlers that I watched, like Diesel and Razor Ramon, all that was over.
I couldn't take the after the finger poke of doom. I was like, oh. And that was when my childhood died.
Mine died with Sting beat Hogan for the belt on that Sunday at pay per view, and then they took it away from him the next day. On Monday Night Nitro. I'm like, really? I'm like, you're really gonna do this after all the work Sting did to get to that point? And I'm like, and then they bring out the fake Sting too. Now I will say that was one of the funniest things in the world, seeing him getting beaten up by the real Sting. All right. So we got about an hour. So before we head off tonight, I do want to say thank you, December, for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Um, oh, and by the way, I saw Haley with the jacket that we got her. It looked phenomenal. Thank you for doing
It
that.
it really did. Like she rocked it. I'm so happy that she got to be happy, and thank you for contributing very much. I know that she appreciates it too.
We loved it. I will say as much. She is a hoot. We drank so much together. Oh my god, it's not good. But I will say she is so fun to hang out with, and I highly recommend it. Anybody gets a chance to hang out with Haley too.
I'd love to do it someday. I was so upset that I didn't get to. I was hoping that she would get to spend as much time um, as she did with people. It seemed that she had a great time though, so I'm glad that she took pictures with everybody and with her jacket on. She looked like such a doll.
She had such a blast. And like she was that person that got like she is our cheerleader from Coffin, you know. And so like everybody was grabbing her, bringing her around, doing stuff, and like I don't think she sat down for the whole convention, you know,
Oh
because you know, and she had a blast doing it, you know. And I was glad she got to come out. It's coming from Australia is a whole different ballgame than coming
yeah,
from Texas to there. So I'm like, I'm glad, I'm happy, and I hope to see you someday at a convention.
that would be great. I would love to. I'm hoping to.
Hey, we always have Fan Expo every year. I'm just saying.
Which one?
Dallas.
Oh, okay.
So
If I'm ever there, you'll be the first person I tell.
I appreciate it. All right. So before we head out, where can people reach you at if they need to get a hold of you?
I'm on YouTube at the Miss December 32. I'm also on Instagram at the Miss December, and then you can find me on Facebook at the Miss December 32. I don't really do too much on my Twitter, so I wouldn't worry too much about that.
I think about Messenger is about the only, or Facebook's about the only one I use. I do YouTube for videos, but this I always say if you ain't on Messenger, I ain't gonna talk to you. But then somebody yells at me, "Well, I'm on Instagram. I'm not on Messenger." Oh God. Okay, let me do Instagram too. So, well, thank you, Miss
It's
December.
it's not on purpose. It's just that I like Twitter is just not like I've never used Twitter. It's not a sudden political like takeover because someone else owns it. It's just I never really used Twitter in the first place, so I don't really use it now. I'm
And
on
everybody,
Facebook a lot. I'm on Facebook a lot of the time though, and then Instagram like a little bit, and I'm trying to get more viewers on YouTube so that I'm able to upload more. Because apparently they have this thing where you need at least this many viewers because you can do this at a time, and I'm like,
yep.
can you just like let me do things so that I don't have to put as much effort into it? Can because I'm December and then making things difficult.
They do. They make it difficult. Well, get this. So I used to be monetized, and then I took a break for 6 months because me and my wife were dating and going out and everything, and then we got engaged and everything. So 6 months, I come back 6 months later, lost my monetization, and now nothing gets pushed out. So it's like, and so I had a lot of the same limitations that you were having, and then it took me a long time to get back. And I've been doing this for 7 years, and it's like they don't make it easy. They've made it a lot harder within the last 4 years for everybody now. So
That's what I understand too.
yeah, it used to be a lot easier, but they make it hard for us now. Uh, but yeah, everybody subscribe to her channel. I'll put it down in the description below in YouTube land. Go
It's
check it out.
it's Miss December 32 on Facebook. And then if you guys can, another awesome artist who got so busy so fast is Nathan Zerdy, and he's a really, really
Yep.
awesome guy. Very, very sweet. If you could, they're doing a whatnot and an in-store appearance for it's a benefit
Yep.
for the Harrell family. It's Saturday, April 20th. They're it's not just him. There's Bianca is going to be there too. They're doing in an art auction. Um, I have a flyer that I'll post, but they the Harrell family lost their little girl. So if you could like just check that out and check out some of their art pieces and donate if you can, that would be really awesome. I know they would appreciate it, but Nathan is contributing some of his art pieces to that. So if you could please check that out, I know that he would really appreciate it. I would too. I'm going to be checking
Yep.
that out also. But he like rarely asks for stuff like this, but I'm mentioning it, and yeah, so I will be checking that out too. So please, if you could, that would be really awesome of you.
Yeah,
That's
I'll sec
that's a tough one. So we've hopefully you guys have never been in that situation. I hope that you haven't, but sending love and prayers to everybody over there.
yeah, I'll second that. Anna told me about that earlier today.
Yeah,
So
Anna Zhao is like a awesome person too, really sweet. And that's really good of her to mention it also. But yeah, so comic community being awesome once again. So please, if you could, and
so
Anna,
please,
we appreciate you very much too. You'll be at the Comics Elite booth on C2E2, and I am totally gonna see you because you have done so much for the comic community too. Like
she
they owe her so much,
and
and she
I
has awesome art.
she has some. She's got a lot of stuff I'm picking up from her in Dallas, but I had her on the here a couple of weeks ago, and literally it was a 3.5 hour conversation with me and Anna, and it because she's got a lot to say, and it's a lot of good things to say, and she's like me, she's blunt and she's honest. That's why we're not always everybody's best friends. I mean, I've been told, "Hey, go away" a couple of times, and it's like, you know what? I'm that blunt guy, you know. And if we're going to say no to AI, hey, that's what we do. We say no to AI, you know. But the thing is people need to understand that there are situations and there are things that we can and can't do. And we need to be respectful of every other things too. So, like in this situation with Nathan, everybody go support that. Go support that as much as possible. Their whatnot is already opened up. I saw the link today, and so he'll probably be putting a lot more on it. So go check it out. I think it's Saturday, right? Is the show?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, go check it out, everybody. Help them out. As you said, Nathan doesn't ask for anything, like hardly anything. So let's go help him out as much as we can. So yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you for letting me mention that.
Oh,
He
you're
probably
welcome.
really appreciates that too.
Yeah, he's so good. I've talked to him several times, you know, and he's so busy, but he's like everybody else. He makes the time to talk to us all when he can.
He is swamped every single time at his booth, and he always has been. Like I saw him the first time in like 2012 at C2E2, and he has never not been swamped, and that guy is terrific. He has not changed once. He's always been like he makes time for people, just the sweetest guy. And like he gets better and better every time you see him, and like he's just stunning in his art, and you would not expect that guy to be as cool as he is.
He is so
And like
laid back.
and like all the good that he does for people, like he doesn't really like post so much about it, but he does so many good things behind the scenes you wouldn't believe it. Just a really good dude.
He is. I mean, there's a lot of things. I've been watching his career for a while, you know, as he's built up over the time, and it just gets better and better. I mean, I've seen some of the mashup stuff he's been doing with Anna lately too, right? And it's like it just brings each artist even better and better, and I love seeing it. I love seeing everybody push each other higher and better, and that's what the community is all about. It's to build it up, not bring it down. So thank you guys, everybody. Like I said, I'll put a link down below too for the Whatnot show. Already had a message out there on it. I saw that before the show tonight, so go check it out. Go help them out as much as you can. I'm gonna go check it out this weekend as well. So thank you, everybody in YouTube land. Thank you, Miss December. I appreciate you, and I will say this too. Thank you for being an awesome person. I don't think people tell you enough that, but you are an awesome person, and thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That made my weekend, and it hasn't really even started yet. So I'm not really quite sure what to say other than that kind of caught me off guard. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being cool. Not a lot of people do this.
Oh yeah, I enjoy it. I have fun, and that's what it's all about is having fun with everybody. All right, guys, y'all take it easy and have a good one, and I'll see you on the next Creator Spotlight.
Thank you,
Right, all
everybody.
right, all right.